yanks the reins from one tourist, tells the other to get off. It was a popular spot, known for its cobbled streets, colorful market stalls, and the gentle clatter of horse hooves on stone. Tourists had begun to trickle in, some carrying backpacks, others with cameras swinging from their necks, ready to capture every moment of their vacation. The air smelled faintly of freshly baked bread from the nearby bakery, mixed with the sweet scent of flowers from a corner florist. Birds chirped in the trees lining the square, and the occasional bicycle bell rang in the distance, blending into the morning chorus. John, a man in his late 40s, was already at his carriage stand. His face was sun-weathered, a testament to years spent working outdoors, but his eyes still sparkled with quiet energy. Today, like every other day, he was dressed simply: a light blue shirt, dark trousers, and a worn leather cap. His hands were rough from handling reins and ropes, but they moved with practiced precision. John had been a carriage driver for over 20 years, and he knew every nuance of his horse, every turn in the square, and every trick tourists might try. His horse, a large brown mare named Daisy, stamped her hooves impatiently. She was strong and steady, with a shiny coat that reflected the morning sunlight. Daisy had been with John for nearly a decade, and they had developed an unspoken understanding. When John touched her shoulder or whispered softly, she knew exactly what he wanted. Today, as John adjusted the harness and checked the carriage wheels, Daisy snorted softly, her breath misting in the cool morning air. Tourists began gathering around, their voices a mix of excitement and curiosity. Some pointed at the horse, others at the ornate carriage, with its polished wooden panels and cushioned seats. Children tugged at their parents' hands, eager to see the horse up close. Among the visitors were two tourists who would soon become central to the day's events. Lisa, a woman in her early 30s, moved cautiously, scanning the carriage with interest. She had traveled a lot but had never ridden in a horse-drawn carriage before. Her eyes were wide with curiosity, and she spoke softly to herself, imagining the ride she was about to take. Mark, on the other hand, was loud and brash. He wore a bright red baseball cap and had a camera slung over his shoulder. He laughed easily and spoke to anyone nearby, sometimes forgetting that others were around. Mark had a confident air about him, the kind that made people think he knew exactly what he was doing, even if he didn't. He noticed the carriage and immediately approached, his steps quick and eager. John watched both of them from a distance, noting their behavior. He had seen many tourists over the years, and he knew the types who would listen carefully and those who would ignore instructions. Safety was always his top priority. A horse, no matter how calm, could be unpredictable if someone did the wrong thing. John adjusted Daisy's reins, gave her a gentle pat on the neck, and prepared to assist the first passenger onto the carriage. Lisa stepped forward, her movements careful and deliberate. She held out her hand for John's assistance, and he smiled warmly. "Easy now," he said in a calm voice. "Take it slow. Daisy's gentle, but we always need to be careful." Lisa nodded, grateful for the guidance. She placed one foot on the step, then another, and finally settled onto the cushioned seat. Her face lit up with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She reached for the side of the carriage to steady herself, her fingers brushing against the polished wood. Mark, meanwhile, had grown impatient. He leaned against the carriage, talking loudly to a friend behind him. "Come on, this is just a horse ride. How hard can it be?" he said, waving his hands dismissively. John kept his eyes on Mark, knowing that the situation could become risky if he didn't intervene. Daisy shifted slightly, sensing the sudden energy nearby. Horses are highly perceptive animals, and Daisy's ears flicked toward Mark as if to warn him that something might happen. The square was alive with activity. Other carriage drivers were preparing their horses, tourists were taking photos, and the market vendors shouted cheerful greetings to attract customers. The rhythmic clatter of hooves on cobblestones created a comforting backdrop, a reminder of the town's history and charm. Amid this, John remained focused, his mind attentive to every small movement. Lisa glanced around, taking in the sights. She noticed a small fountain nearby, its water sparkling in the morning light, and a group of musicians setting up for a performance later in the day. She felt a sense of calm and excitement at the same time, trusting John and Daisy to make the experience enjoyable. Her anticipation was part of what made the morning so vibrant, the promise of a new adventure unfolding. Mark, however, was growing more impatient by the minute. He leaned closer to the carriage, reaching out toward the reins. "Hey, let me try," he said, a teasing tone in his voice. "I've ridden horses before. I can handle it." John's eyes narrowed slightly, but he remained composed. He had dealt with people like Mark countless times, and experience had taught him the importance of handling such moments with calm authority. "Sir," John said, keeping his voice steady but firm, "please wait. The passenger is settling in first. We go one at a time." His words were polite but carried an unmistakable weight. Daisy's ears flicked back at the sound of his voice, her body tensing slightly as if reinforcing the message. Mark waved his hand dismissively, but John did not waver. He took a deep breath, steadying his own nerves while ensuring the horse stayed calm. Other tourists noticed the interaction, some pausing to watch. Children leaned against their parents, curious about the tension but unaware of the potential danger. John's careful handling of the situation reflected both his expertise and his respect for the safety of everyone involved. His years of experience had taught him that a horse could sense fear, hesitation, or misjudgment, and any misstep could lead to an accident. As Lisa finally settled comfortably, John patted her shoulder gently. "You're all set," he said. "Just sit back and enjoy the ride. I'll take care of the rest." Lisa smiled, her nervousness replaced by excitement. She adjusted her camera strap and leaned slightly forward, eager to see the path ahead. Mark, noticing that the attention had shifted away from him, grumbled under his breath but remained standing. John continued to monitor him, ensuring that no sudden movements would startle Daisy. The morning sun climbed higher, warming the square, and the town began to feel alive with anticipation for the day ahead. John guided Daisy forward slowly, the carriage moving smoothly over the cobblestones. The gentle rocking of the ride, combined with the rhythmic sound of hooves, created a sense of calm and order. Lisa held the sides of the carriage lightly, her eyes taking in every detail of the town. She could hear the distant chatter of vendors, the soft hum of conversation from other tourists, and the occasional clip-clop of another horse passing by. Mark, still standing nearby, began to realize that his impatience was unnecessary. John's quiet authority and Daisy's calm demeanor created a clear message. The ride would proceed on their terms, not his. He shifted from foot to foot, looking slightly embarrassed but not yet willing to step away completely. The scene in the square continued to unfold like a small performance, with tourists, horses, and vendors each playing their part. The smells, sounds, and sights combined to form a vivid tapestry of life, excitement, and subtle tension. John's careful attention ensured that nothing would disturb the balance, and the promise of a memorable ride hung in the air, just waiting to begin. By the time the carriage was ready to leave the stand, the small drama of the morning had set the stage. Lisa was comfortably seated, her eyes wide with wonder. Daisy was calm, her reins steady in John's hands. Mark was still nearby, a mix of curiosity and caution now replacing his earlier brashness. The square buzzed with life, and John knew that once they started moving, the experience would be both safe and unforgettable, if only everyone followed the simple rules of respect, patience, and awareness. And so, the morning set the tone for what was about to unfold, a ride that would test patience, reveal character, and offer a small but important lesson about control, respect, and trust between humans and animals alike. The carriage had just begun to move, rolling smoothly over the cobblestones as John guided Daisy with calm and steady hands. Lisa held on lightly, her excitement growing with every step. The crisp morning air brushed her face, carrying the mixed scents of the town, the faint aroma of pastries from a bakery, the earthy scent of horses, and the sweet fragrance of flowers from nearby stalls. The gentle rocking of the carriage and the rhythmic clop of Daisy's hooves created a soothing rhythm, almost like a lullaby. John's eyes, however, remained vigilant. His years of experience had taught him that even a calm horse could react unexpectedly if something startled it. He observed the surroundings carefully, other tourists taking photos, small children chasing each other through the square, and a few pigeons pecking at crumbs on the ground. But his attention was also on Mark, who had not yet stepped away. Mark leaned on the carriage casually, smiling at Lisa with a teasing look. "Looks fun, doesn't it?" he said, his tone loud enough for others nearby to hear. "I bet I could handle it better." His words carried a mixture of bravado and curiosity, but John could sense the potential danger behind the casual demeanor. Horses were sensitive creatures. They could sense tension, sudden movements, or overconfidence. One careless gesture could easily spook Daisy. Lisa glanced at Mark nervously. She could see the way he was leaning on the carriage, reaching toward the reins at times, as if daring himself to take control. Her heart quickened slightly. She had trusted John and Daisy to keep the ride safe, and now she worried that Mark might interfere. She looked at John, silently hoping he would handle the situation. John spoke calmly without raising his voice. "Sir," he said, his tone steady but firm, "please step back. The horse is calm, but we need to follow safety rules. Only one person at a time can handle the reins, and only with my instruction." Daisy shifted slightly, her ears flicking back at the sound of John's voice, as if reinforcing the warning. The mare's body was tense but under control, a clear signal that she was aware of the situation. Mark chuckled, brushing it off. "I just want to try. It's not a big deal." He reached a hand closer to the reins, his movements casual but unpredictable. John's grip tightened slightly, keeping Daisy steady. He had seen tourists like Mark countless times, people who thought they could handle animals without understanding the risks. John knew that patience alone might not be enough if Mark didn't listen. The sounds of the square seemed to fade for a moment as the tension built. Lisa held on tighter, watching John and Mark carefully. She noticed the calm authority in John's movements, the way he adjusted Daisy's harness, how he shifted his weight to communicate subtly with the horse, and the firm but gentle way he guided the carriage. Everything about John spoke of experience and understanding, and Lisa felt a mix of relief and admiration. Other tourists nearby started to notice the interaction as well. A couple taking photos paused, tilting their heads to watch. Children slowed their running games, sensing that something was different about the scene. John's calm but firm stance made it clear that he was in control, and the small crowd around them instinctively respected that. Mark, however, seemed to grow impatient. He shifted his weight from foot to foot, glancing around at the people watching. "Come on, this is just a horse," he said again, louder this time. "It's not like it will bite me." His tone was meant to be playful, but John knew that humor could not replace safety. The mare twitched slightly at the sudden volume, and John's eyes narrowed subtly. "Sir," John repeated more firmly, "please step away from the reins. You are not authorized to handle the horse. It is dangerous if you interfere." Daisy snorted softly, her muscles tightening as if echoing John's warning. John's voice did not rise, but it carried an unmistakable authority born from years of experience. Mark frowned, realizing that John was serious. He took a half step back, but his curiosity was still evident. "I've ridden horses before," he muttered. "I can handle it." But even as he spoke, he hesitated, sensing the quiet intensity in John's presence and the alertness in Daisy. John had mastered a way of communicating with both humans and animals simultaneously, and now Mark was beginning to understand that it was not safe to ignore his guidance. Lisa exhaled slowly, feeling a sense of relief as Mark's hand finally stopped moving toward the reins. She adjusted her seat slightly, brushing her hair from her face, and tried to focus on the ride ahead. She had been excited for the experience, and she did not want Mark's behavior to ruin it. The gentle rocking of the carriage and Daisy's steady gait began to calm her nerves again. John glanced at Lisa briefly, giving her a reassuring nod. "We're okay," he said quietly. "Just enjoy the ride. I've got everything under control." Lisa smiled softly, grateful for the reassurance. She had come to appreciate John's calm demeanor and his understanding of the horse. Daisy, too, seemed to sense the shift in energy, her body relaxing slightly as the carriage moved forward. The square opened into a narrow street lined with small shops and cafes. The sound of traffic was minimal here, replaced by the soft chatter of pedestrians and the occasional clink of glasses from outdoor tables. John guided Daisy with steady hands, taking care to navigate the cobblestones smoothly. Lisa leaned forward slightly, enjoying the view of the charming buildings and colorful signs. The experience was exactly what she had hoped for: peaceful, scenic, and just a little thrilling. Mark lingered nearby, still watching. He seemed conflicted between wanting to assert himself and recognizing John's authority. His movements were cautious now, but he couldn't completely suppress his curiosity. He leaned slightly closer to the carriage again, glancing at the reins. John noticed immediately and spoke without hesitation. "Sir," he said firmly, "if you come any closer, I will have to stop the ride. I cannot risk the safety of the passenger or the horse." Daisy's ears twitched, and she shifted her weight subtly, reinforcing John's command. Mark froze, realizing that this was not a situation to challenge. Slowly, he stepped back completely, muttering something under his breath, but the tension in his body had eased. Lisa let out a quiet laugh, partly from relief and partly from the absurdity of the situation. She had not expected her first carriage ride to involve so much drama, but she was glad that John had handled it calmly and effectively. She leaned back in her seat, taking in the sights around her. The narrow street curved gently, and the sunlight reflected off the windows of the shops, creating a warm, golden glow. The atmosphere was lively yet safe, and Lisa felt a growing sense of trust in John's abilities. As they continued down the street, John's attention remained split between guiding Daisy and monitoring the surroundings. He knew that a horse could react to sudden noises, unexpected movements, or even the energy of nearby people. Daisy moved gracefully, responding to the subtle shifts in John's weight and the gentle pull of the reins. Lisa felt the connection between driver and horse, a silent communication that made the ride feel smooth and reassuring. Mark finally walked away, muttering to himself, and joined a small group of other tourists observing from the sidewalk. He seemed embarrassed but also intrigued, as if he had learned a small lesson about respecting experience and authority. John didn't look at him directly, instead keeping his focus on the carriage and the road ahead. Lisa noticed the change in Mark's demeanor and smiled quietly to herself, appreciating the calm that now settled over the ride. The morning continued, with more tourists passing by and Daisy navigating the streets with ease. John guided the carriage carefully, pointing out landmarks and sharing brief, friendly stories about the town. Lisa listened attentively, enjoying both the scenery and the narration. The experience was exactly what she had hoped for: safe, peaceful, and full of small wonders. By the time the carriage reached a wider, open square, the earlier tension had faded completely. Daisy moved confidently, guided by John's expert hands, and Lisa relaxed fully, letting herself enjoy the rhythm of the ride. The sun had risen higher now, casting bright light over the town and making the cobblestones gleam. Birds flew overhead, and the occasional soft clatter of another horse-drawn carriage echoed through the streets. John glanced at Lisa and smiled. "We're making good progress," he said. "You're doing fine. Just enjoy it." Lisa returned the smile, feeling grateful for the calm, reassuring presence of the man who had handled the tense moment so effortlessly. The ride had started with a small drama, but now it was unfolding exactly as she had imagined. A peaceful journey through a charming town, guided by someone who truly understood both the horse and the people around him. The carriage rolled smoothly into the heart of the town, past small cafes, shops, and a fountain that sparkled in the sunlight. Lisa could hear the gentle murmur of other tourists, the laughter of children, and the soft clop of Daisy's hooves. She felt a sense of satisfaction and relief, knowing that John had managed the situation calmly, keeping everyone safe. The experience was more than just a ride. It was a lesson in patience, respect, and understanding, the kind of insight that could only come from someone who had dedicated years to mastering their craft. The carriage continued along the quiet streets of the town, Daisy's hooves, creating a steady rhythm that matched the slow morning pace. Lisa relaxed, enjoying the gentle rocking and the view of colorful buildings, small cafes and shopkeepers arranging their wares. The town had a calm charm, almost like stepping back in time, with narrow streets, cobblestones, and the faint scent of fresh bread wafting from a bakery at the corner. Everything seemed peaceful, yet John's eyes remained alert. Mark had drifted alongside the carriage for a few moments, pretending to take pictures, but his curiosity clearly hadn't faded. He watched Lisa and John carefully, as if looking for an opportunity to step in. John sensed this immediately. Horses could sense energy, tension, or sudden movement. Daisy, although calm, twitched her ears and shifted her weight slightly, indicating she was aware of the nearby distraction. John's grip on the reins tightened subtly, a silent communication between driver and horse. "Sir," John said firmly but without raising his voice, "please stay back. The horse is calm, but you cannot interfere with the ride." His tone carried authority, the kind that came from years of experience. Daisy snorted softly and stamped a hoof lightly, reinforcing John's message. Mark smiled awkwardly, trying to appear casual, but John could see the nervous energy in his stance. Mark's curiosity got the better of him. "I just want to see how it feels," he said, leaning slightly toward the reins. His words were casual, but his movements were unpredictable. John's heart tightened. Even the slightest tug could startle Daisy and put Lisa at risk. He shifted slightly in the seat, ensuring his body was between Mark and the reins, and gave Daisy a small, reassuring pat on her neck. Lisa noticed the change in energy immediately. Her hands gripped the sides of the carriage, her excitement now mixed with tension. She trusted John, but she had not anticipated another person creating potential danger during her first ride. She looked at John, silently asking him to handle the situation. John met her gaze briefly and nodded reassuringly. His calm expression gave her some comfort, but she could sense the intensity of the moment. Mark laughed lightly, as if trying to make the situation seem like a joke. "Come on, it's just a horse. Don't worry so much," he said, stepping a little closer. Daisy twitched again, her ears flicking backward. John knew that the horse was alert and could react if provoked. He leaned forward slightly, keeping his voice steady and firm. "Step back now," he said. "This is serious. One wrong move could be dangerous for both the horse and the passenger." Mark hesitated. He glanced at Lisa, who was gripping the edge of the seat, and then back at John. His face shifted from amusement to a mixture of frustration and uncertainty. He realized that John was not joking. Daisy's subtle movements, combined with John's calm authority, made it clear that this was not a situation to challenge. Yet Mark's pride prevented him from stepping away immediately. Lisa exhaled quietly. Her heart was racing slightly, but she trusted John completely. She adjusted her position slightly to ensure she was seated safely and tried to focus on the scenery to calm herself. The town passed by in a blur of colors: flower boxes on windowsills, signs advertising local pastries, and the glint of sunlight on cobblestones. The rhythm of Daisy's hooves gradually helped her calm down. John's eyes never left Mark. He had dealt with situations like this many times before, and he knew that patience alone might not be enough. He had to act decisively if Mark made another move. John's hands on the reins were steady, his body positioned perfectly to maintain control over Daisy. Every small gesture communicated safety to the horse and authority to the tourist. Mark took a small step forward, reaching slightly toward the reins. His curiosity was overwhelming his caution. In that instant, John acted. With quick but controlled movements, he gently yanked the reins back, just enough to stop any sudden movement from Daisy and to assert control over the situation. Daisy's muscles responded immediately, remaining calm but alert. The slight pull startled Mark and his hand recoiled slightly. "Step away," John said firmly, his voice carrying the weight of authority and experience. The tone was sharp, leaving no room for argument. Mark froze, realizing he had crossed a line. He looked at John with wide eyes, a mixture of surprise and embarrassment. Daisy's ears flicked forward, as if acknowledging that John was in control, and her posture relaxed slightly once the threat of interference was removed. Lisa exhaled a breath she didn't realize she was holding. Relief washed over her, but she also felt a surge of admiration for John. He had acted quickly and decisively, ensuring her safety without alarming Daisy. She adjusted her seating once more, trying to shake off the lingering tension. Her hands lightly rested on the polished wood of the carriage, and she felt the smooth warmth of the seat beneath her. Mark stepped back fully this time, muttering an apology under his breath. He avoided eye contact, clearly embarrassed by the situation. He realized that his actions, even if unintended as dangerous, had been reckless. John gave him a calm but firm nod, acknowledging his step back but silently communicating that further interference would not be tolerated. The street they were on opened into a larger square, where sunlight bathed the cobblestones in gold. Children played near a fountain and the occasional bird hopped along the edge, pecking at crumbs. Tourists strolled leisurely, taking photos and enjoying the warm morning. John guided Daisy carefully through the square, maintaining a smooth pace. The tension from moments earlier began to fade, replaced by a sense of calm and order. Lisa finally relaxed completely. She could see the way John communicated with Daisy through subtle shifts in his body and slight movements of the reins. It was a silent conversation, built over years of trust and experience. She admired the connection between man and horse, realizing that this was part of the beauty of the ride. The horse was more than an animal. It was a partner, responding to John's guidance with grace and precision. Mark lingered at the edge of the square, watching from a safe distance. He seemed to reflect on his earlier actions, his face showing a mixture of regret and newfound respect. He had underestimated the importance of caution and the skill required to handle a horse safely. Lisa noticed this change and felt a quiet satisfaction. The lesson had been delivered without conflict, yet its impact was clear. John continued to guide the carriage through the square, pointing out small details along the way. He mentioned the history of a nearby building, the significance of a statue, and the story behind a fountain. Lisa listened intently, fascinated by the blend of scenery and storytelling. She realized that John's expertise went beyond handling the horse. He knew how to share the town's charm, making the experience both safe and memorable. Daisy moved gracefully, responding to every subtle command. Lisa marveled at the way John guided her through narrow spaces and around small obstacles. The horse's calm demeanor reflected John's steady control, and Lisa felt a growing sense of trust. The earlier tension with Mark seemed like a distant memory, replaced by the peaceful rhythm of the ride and the beauty of the town. As the carriage approached a quiet side street, John glanced at Lisa and smiled reassuringly. "We're almost at the next part of the route," he said. "Just enjoy the ride." Lisa returned the smile, her hands resting lightly on the sides of the carriage. She could feel her excitement returning, now that the potential danger had passed. The town stretched out before them, full of life, charm, and small discoveries waiting to be noticed. Mark had finally moved back to the main sidewalk, keeping a respectful distance. He occasionally glanced at the carriage, seemingly reflecting on what he had learned about patience, respect, and safety. Lisa noticed the change but chose to focus on the ride, appreciating John's calm and capable handling of both Daisy and the situation. The square gave way to a narrow alley lined with small shops. Sunlight filtered through gaps between the buildings, creating patterns on the cobblestones. John guided Daisy carefully, slowing slightly as they passed pedestrians and other tourists. Lisa felt a sense of comfort in the rhythm of the ride, the smooth clop of hooves on stone, and the gentle sway of the carriage. The earlier tension had made the experience feel more vivid. Lisa realized that even small moments of challenge could make a story memorable. She watched Daisy's ears twitch, John's hands move subtly on the reins, and Mark observing from a distance. Each detail seemed more significant now, as if the morning had been carefully orchestrated to teach a lesson about attention, respect, and understanding. By the time the carriage emerged from the alley, the town had fully come alive with the energy of morning visitors, street performers, and shopkeepers calling out greetings. The sun was higher now, casting bright light over the rooftops and cobblestones. Daisy moved confidently, guided by John's experienced hands. Lisa leaned back in her seat, feeling safe, relaxed, and grateful for the care with which John had handled the entire situation. The ride had begun with excitement, moved through tension, and was now settling into a peaceful rhythm. John's skill, patience, and authority had ensured that no one was harmed and that the experience could continue safely. Lisa realized that she would remember this part of the ride not only for the scenery, but also for the quiet lesson in respect, trust, and the delicate balance between curiosity and caution. The carriage rolled gently through the wider streets of the town, Daisy's hooves clopping, in a steady rhythm that matched the quiet hum of life around them. The morning had fully unfolded now. Sunlight reflected off the windows of small shops, and the scent of freshly baked bread mingled with the delicate fragrance of flowers in shopfront boxes. Children ran ahead, laughing as their parents followed, while street musicians struck soft chords on their instruments, adding a cheerful melody to the bustling town. Lisa, seated comfortably in the carriage, felt a deep sense of relief after the earlier tense moment. She had never experienced anything quite like it before. Her first horse carriage ride, combined with an unexpected lesson in patience and respect. Her hands rested lightly on the polished sides of the carriage, and her eyes wandered across the town's familiar yet magical scenery. She noticed the intricate signs above each shop, the subtle patterns in the cobblestones, and even the way sunlight danced on the water in a nearby fountain. John guided Daisy carefully through the streets, his movements smooth and precise. His hands on the reins were steady, and his posture spoke of years of experience. He spoke occasionally, pointing out interesting landmarks or telling small stories about the town. "That building was once a bakery over 100 years ago," he said casually. "The owner used to deliver bread to the town square every morning before sunrise." His voice was calm and soothing, and Lisa found herself leaning forward slightly, eager to hear more. Mark, who had stepped back after the earlier incident, followed from a safe distance, walking along the edge of the sidewalk. He seemed quieter now, more reflective. He glanced occasionally at the carriage, watching how John guided Daisy with careful movements and calm authority. There was no rush, No unnecessary gesture, just steady guidance. Mark's earlier overconfidence had given way to a quiet understanding. This was not a situation for jokes or impatience. Lisa noticed Mark's change in demeanor and smiled quietly to herself. It was interesting to see how quickly someone could learn a lesson when faced with real-world consequences. She reflected on her own initial nervousness and realized that the experience was teaching her more than just about horse carriage rides. It was about trust, patience, and understanding that every task, no matter how simple it seemed, required skill and care. John continued, guiding Daisy around a corner and into a narrow lane that opened onto a small plaza. The plaza was filled with light, its cobblestones gleaming in the morning sun. Cafes had set out tables with colorful umbrellas, and the gentle murmur of conversation blended with the occasional clink of cups and plates. Daisy moved gracefully through the plaza, responding perfectly to John's subtle signals. Lisa leaned back, taking in the beauty of the scene. She could see pigeons pecking at scattered crumbs and children chasing each other around a fountain, their laughter ringing out like music. John noticed Lisa's interest and began pointing out small details that tourists might miss. "See the stone carving above that door," he said. "It dates back to the 1800s. The family who lived here were famous for their pottery. Many of the pieces are still in local shops today." Lisa listened intently, impressed by John's knowledge and storytelling. His ability to manage the horse while sharing history made the ride feel rich and memorable. Mark walked alongside the carriage, his posture more relaxed now, though he still watched carefully. He had learned the importance of patience in just a few moments, and he seemed determined not to repeat his earlier mistake. Lisa noticed the way he kept a safe distance, yet his eyes followed John and Daisy with genuine curiosity. He was observing the subtle communication between driver and horse, perhaps beginning to understand the respect and attention it required. The carriage moved through another quiet street lined with small artisan shops. The gentle sway of the ride combined with Daisy's steady rhythm created a calming atmosphere. Lisa felt a sense of peace, mixed with admiration for John's professionalism. He had handled the tense moment with Mark without anger, without panic, and without losing control. The way he communicated silently with Daisy, while also maintaining authority over the humans around him, was a lesson in itself. John's voice broke the comfortable silence, soft but firm. It's important to understand that animals, like people, respond to energy and attention. A horse can sense if you are nervous, rushed, or careless. That's why we must always approach with patience and respect. Lisa nodded, realizing that this lesson applied not only to horse riding but to life in general. Patience, calmness, and careful observation could prevent mistakes and create better experiences for everyone involved. Mark, walking beside the carriage, seemed to reflect on this. He glanced at Daisy and then at John, noticing how smoothly the horse responded to gentle guidance. He realized that his earlier impulsive behavior could have disrupted the ride or even caused harm. The embarrassment he felt was tempered by a newfound understanding and respect for John's skill. He walked silently for a moment, absorbing the lesson without the need for words. Lisa smiled quietly to herself. She had learned two things from the experience. Trust in someone experienced is invaluable, and respect for others. Expertise makes every shared experience safer and more enjoyable. She could see that Mark was beginning to understand the same. It was a subtle moment, but it felt significant. The ride had become more than a simple carriage journey. It was a lesson in observation, patience, and the quiet power of experience. As the carriage approached a small square with a fountain at its center, John slowed Daisy down. The water sparkled in the sunlight, and small children ran around the edges, their laughter blending with the soft splashes from the fountain. Lisa reached out and lightly touched the edge of the carriage, feeling the smooth polish beneath her fingertips. The moment was peaceful, almost meditative. John spoke softly, pointing to the fountain. This plaza is a favorite spot for locals and tourists alike. Many people come here in the morning to enjoy the calm before the day becomes busy. Lisa listened carefully, noticing the way John's voice guided attention without demanding it. His calm presence made her feel safe, allowing her to enjoy the small details of the surroundings. Mark walked at a respectful distance, observing quietly. He seemed to have let go of his earlier impatience and was now more interested in understanding than in asserting control. Lisa could see the subtle shift in his body language. Shoulders relaxed, hands away from the carriage, eyes attentive but careful. It was a small transformation but significant in the context of the morning's events. John continued guiding Daisy around the fountain, explaining small details about the surrounding buildings. That building on the corner was once a library. Children used to come here to read and play. Some of the books are still preserved in the town archives. Lisa listened attentively, enjoying the mixture of history, culture, and peaceful scenery. She realized that the ride had offered her more than she expected. It was a lesson in trust, observation, and respect for both animals and people. The gentle rhythm of Daisy's steps created a sense of calm that Lisa found deeply comforting. She leaned back slightly, letting herself enjoy the ride fully. The earlier tension with Mark felt distant now, replaced by appreciation for the skill and patience required to guide both the horse and the passenger safely through the streets. Mark's reflection continued silently. He had learned in just a few minutes the value of listening, observing, and respecting experience. He had been impulsive, but he now understood that patience and awareness could prevent unnecessary mistakes. Watching John guide Daisy with calm authority had given him a clear example of how knowledge and experience could be used effectively. Lisa watched the town pass by, noting the small details she might have missed without John's guidance. She felt a sense of gratitude for his calm presence and expertise. Every movement, every gesture seemed deliberate and purposeful, making her appreciate the quiet art of working with animals and managing situations responsibly. As the carriage slowly made its way out of the plaza, John glanced at Lisa and nodded. "We're almost done with this part of the ride," he said gently. "I hope you've enjoyed it." Lisa smiled, feeling a mixture of satisfaction and admiration. She had experienced more than a ride. She had learned lessons in patience, respect, and careful observation. Mark, now walking slightly behind, seemed to share a similar sense of reflection. He had come into the morning full of confidence and impatience, but he was leaving with a deeper understanding of the importance of safety, attention, and respect. Lisa noticed the subtle shift in him and felt a quiet sense of approval. The lesson had been delivered without conflict, and the results were evident. The carriage continued, Daisy moving steadily through the streets. The town was alive with activity, yet a sense of calm persisted within the carriage. Lisa leaned back, enjoying the gentle movement, the soft clop of hooves, and the beauty of the surroundings. The ride had become more than transportation. It had become a lesson, a story, and an experience she would remember for a long time. John's presence was steady, unwavering, and quietly authoritative. Lisa realized that it was not just the horse that needed guidance, but also the passengers and those nearby. The ability to manage multiple elements calmly and effectively was a skill honed over years, and she admired it deeply. By the time the carriage exited the plaza, the town had fully come alive with the sounds of visitors, vendors, and street performers. Yet within the carriage, a sense of peace and understanding remained. Lisa felt grateful for the experience and for the quiet lessons she had learned along the way. Mark, too, seemed to reflect quietly, aware now of the importance of patience, respect, and careful observation in all situations. The morning had begun with excitement and tension, but it was now evolving into reflection, learning, and appreciation. Lisa and Mark, though very different in personality, had both learned something valuable from the experience, one through trust, the other through observation. And through it all, Daisy moved gracefully, guided by John's skilled hands and calm presence. The carriage moved steadily back toward the main square, Daisy's hooves clopping rhythmically against the cobblestones. The town had fully awakened now. Shopkeepers arranged their displays, children chased each other between benches, and the faint aroma of coffee and pastries filled the air. The streets were alive with chatter, laughter, and the occasional sound of bicycle bells, yet within the carriage there was a sense of calm. Lisa leaned back comfortably, taking in the surroundings and reflecting on the morning's events. She felt a mix of relief, admiration, and quiet satisfaction. The ride had begun with excitement and a hint of nervousness, escalated with tension when Mark had interfered, and had evolved into a lesson in patience, respect, and observation. Lisa realized that she had witnessed more than a simple carriage ride. She had seen expertise, calm authority, and careful management in action. John, guiding Daisy with skillful hands, had not only ensured her safety, but also created an environment where she could appreciate the beauty of the town without fear. Mark walked alongside the carriage, keeping a safe distance this time. He seemed more reflective than earlier, his body relaxed, yet attentive. Lisa noticed subtle changes in his demeanor. His overconfidence had softened, replaced by a quiet awareness. He was watching John carefully, noticing the small gestures, the shifts in weight, and the way Daisy responded to every movement. It was clear that he had learned something important about respect, patience, and the trust required when working with animals. John guided the carriage around a corner and into a quieter lane. The sunlight fell in long patterns across the cobblestones, highlighting the intricate details of the old buildings lining the street. Lisa leaned forward slightly, curious and captivated by the small details she might have otherwise missed. A tiny shop sign swinging gently in the breeze, the faded paint of an old door, a vine crawling along a brick wall, all combined to create a scene that was peaceful and charming. "See that?" John said quietly, pointing to a small sculpture above a doorway. "That was carved over a century ago. People say it brings good luck to anyone who notices it." Lisa smiled, appreciating not only the history but also John's way of sharing stories. His calm tone and subtle humor made the narration feel like a personal conversation rather than a formal lesson. Mark walked alongside, now more absorbed in observation than in asserting himself. He noticed the careful way John held the reins, how Daisy responded to gentle shifts in weight, and the unspoken communication that had prevented the earlier tension from escalating. He seemed to reflect on the lesson he had learned, that respect, patience, and careful observation were more powerful than force or overconfidence. The carriage continued along the lane, the rhythm of Daisy's steps creating a comforting backdrop. Lisa felt the sway of the carriage, the soft clop of hooves, and the gentle movement of air against her face. The ride was peaceful now, a contrast to the earlier tension, and yet it was the earlier tension that had made the current calm feel more satisfying. Lisa realized that moments of challenge often make resolution more meaningful. John spoke softly, breaking the silence. "It's always important to pay attention to both the animal and the environment. Even small details matter. That awareness keeps everyone safe and allows the experience to be enjoyable." Lisa nodded, reflecting on the broader meaning. The lesson applied not only to horse carriage rides but to many aspects of life. Attentiveness, respect for experience, and careful observation could prevent mistakes and improve outcomes in countless situations. Mark seemed to take this lesson to heart. He occasionally glanced at John and Daisy, quietly observing the smooth coordination between driver and horse. He had learned that skill and experience were not things to challenge impulsively, but to respect and understand. The embarrassment of the earlier incident had faded, replaced by a deeper appreciation for what he had witnessed. As the carriage emerged from the lane, the square opened up again, bright and bustling. Tourists were taking photographs, children were playing near fountains, and street performers were setting up small acts. The sounds of laughter, music, and conversation filled the air, creating a lively atmosphere. Yet within the carriage, a sense of calm persisted. Lisa felt a sense of satisfaction and gratitude. She had been guided safely through both the physical path and the unexpected challenges of the ride. John navigated the carriage around the square, passing familiar landmarks. He pointed out the history of a nearby building and explained the significance of a small statue in the center. Lisa listened attentively, appreciating both the knowledge he shared and the calm authority with which he conducted the ride. Daisy moved smoothly, responding perfectly to John's hands and weight shifts. Lisa could see that the connection between driver and horse was based on mutual trust and understanding, a partnership built over years. Mark, walking beside the carriage, seemed to reflect silently on the experience. His movements were measured, careful, and respectful. He had learned the value of patience, observation, and following guidance. Lisa noticed that his earlier brashness had been replaced by a quiet attentiveness. He occasionally glanced at John, perhaps considering how much skill and calm authority it required to guide Daisy safely while interacting with passengers and bystanders. Lisa leaned back, feeling the gentle sway of the carriage and listening to the soft clop of Daisy's hooves. The town was alive, yet within the carriage, there was a sense of peaceful isolation. She felt grateful for John's presence, for Daisy's calmness, and even for the small moment of tension earlier. It had taught her the value of patience and careful observation. She realized that these were lessons that extended far beyond the ride itself. John's voice broke the quiet reflection, gentle yet firm. "Almost there," he said. "Just a little further and we'll be back at the starting point." Lisa smiled, feeling a mix of relief and satisfaction. The ride had been memorable not only for the scenery and experience, but also for the lessons woven through the journey. Daisy moved steadily, guided expertly by John's hands. The sun cast long shadows across the cobblestones, highlighting the textures of the old streets and buildings. Lisa noticed how the town had changed slightly with the rising sun. The colors seemed brighter, the sounds sharper, and the energy more vibrant. It felt like the town itself was alive, responding to the rhythm of the morning. Mark stayed nearby, walking with measured steps. He seemed more thoughtful than ever, reflecting on the morning's events. The ride had started with excitement, experienced tension, and was now winding toward calm and resolution. He had learned about respect, patience, and the value of listening to experience. Lisa could see that this quiet reflection was a lasting effect of the morning, a subtle transformation in understanding. The carriage finally reached the starting point near the main square. John guided Daisy to a smooth stop, checking the harness and reins carefully. Lisa sat still for a moment, absorbing the final moments of the ride. She could see the familiar shops, the fountain where children played, and the tourists taking photographs. Yet the experience she had gained felt larger than the surroundings. It was about the lessons learned, the trust built, and the calm that had emerged after the tension. John turned to Lisa and smiled warmly. "We're back," he said. "I hope you enjoyed the ride." Lisa nodded, a smile of gratitude spreading across her face. "It was more than I expected," she said. "Thank you for guiding me and for keeping everything safe." John's calm smile reassured her, a quiet acknowledgement of her words and appreciation for the trust she had placed in him. Mark approached, walking quietly this time. He hesitated for a moment, then nodded slightly at John. I understand now," he said softly. "Thank you for showing me how important patience and attention are." John gave a brief nod, his calm demeanor unchanged. There was no lecture, no condescension, just quiet acknowledgement of understanding. Mark seemed satisfied with the small but significant lesson he had learned. Lisa climbed carefully out of the carriage, steadying herself with John's guidance. She looked at Daisy, gently patting the mare's neck. "Thank you," she whispered softly, feeling a connection with the horse and the driver that went beyond the ride itself. Daisy snorted softly in response, her calm presence reflecting the trust and care she had received throughout the morning. Mark, too, stepped back fully, giving John a respectful distance. He seemed reflective but peaceful, having absorbed the morning's lessons without conflict. Lisa noticed the subtle change in him and smiled quietly. The ride had not only provided a memorable experience, but it also influenced everyone involved, leaving lessons that would last long after the horses had returned to their stables. John watched as both tourists moved away from the carriage stand. He adjusted Daisy's harness and reins, giving her a gentle pat. The morning had been busy, but it had been rewarding. He reflected quietly on the events, the excitement, the tension, and the resolution. Each ride brought its own lessons, challenges, and moments of reflection, and he took pride in guiding passengers safely while sharing the charm of the town. Lisa walked away slowly, glancing back at the carriage and Daisy. She carried with her a sense of satisfaction, trust, and the quiet understanding that patience, respect, and observation could create memorable and safe experiences. Mark followed, thoughtful and quieter than when he had first arrived. The morning had left its mark on both tourists, teaching subtle yet valuable lessons about patience, respect, and awareness. As the square returned to its usual flow of tourists, shoppers, and locals, John guided Daisy to a nearby corner, readying her for the next ride. The morning had begun with excitement and tension, and it had ended with calm, reflection, and a sense of satisfaction. The story of the ride, though simple on the surface, had carried lessons about trust, skill, patience, and the quiet authority of experience. Lessons that both Lisa and Mark would carry with them long after the morning had ended.